Hi, this is Giancarlo Dimitio, Education Director at Indie Language Center. Joining me is Vikey Chen.
Hello everyone, I'm Vikey. I'm from Hong Kong, and it's great to be here today because we have a lot of parents that think about language learning all the time for their kids. So we really need to learn some great approaches about doing that.
Okay, yeah.
You know, phonics classes are very popular in many countries nowadays. The relationship between the sound and the word, like a C is ka ka ka, T is ta ta ta. Because now, especially in Hong Kong, it's very popular. The kids after school, they just take the phonics classes.
Yes.
And should we start from phonics as well, where we learn English?
Yeah, we have a program here in English called Accent Reduction. We have a couple of teachers that are specialized in teaching you how to position your mouth, your teeth, your tongue. One of the first things they show you is this. It's kind of like a cutaway, the side of your face, the inside of your mouth and tongue look like. If you were to cut your head in half, you could see where all of the different vowel sounds are positioned. And there's many in English. For each letter, it represents many vowel sounds. I'm simplifying it, but the ability of your of your muscle memory to pull from your own language and try to mimic a new language is going to be always limited, because you're going to approximate. This approximation is going to get close, but sometimes it's not good. Like a lot of Italian learners approximate the letter R, which in Italian is pronounced R, as R, which is not making contact where it should. So sometimes those approximations are not good enough, and you really have to learn the correct phonics or the correct phoneme, as they say.
Little practice the muscle memory to build up a new muscle memory.
Right. Yeah, the muscle needs to be worked from all angles. Tricks help. And we have a lot of tricks that can help you get a lot closer to the correct pronunciation than if you were to try to do it by yourself, because you're just going to rely on your ear, and your ear has been trained by your own language all your life. Right. And so we can pull you away from using your ear and help you use your senses more, your sense of touch, how it feels in your mouth, which is actually what we're doing more than what you believe. Yes, hearing is important, but there's some deaf people that are trained to speak perfectly, almost very well now, that can barely hear, but they know what it feels like. They know what correct pronunciation feels like. So phonics is very important, and it also highlights how important muscle memory is within language. And I would say that your ability to pronounce a language correctly from the beginning, or working on it, that you're working on it, is more important than grammar from the beginning. Now, if you have an accent, that's different. If you're learning a language and you end up having an accent, that's considered stylish. It's
the coolest accent I got, right?
Right.
But you bring up something very important, because as an adult, some people are ashamed of their accent. They like the native accent. For example, people regard American and British accent as the standard English. I'm so afraid of saying something that is not in the native accent. How to overcome that?
Well, first of all, I would say that feeling of shame is not productive, and that we should try to manage that as best we can in the classroom, because your ability to work on it and to strive to constantly improve, there's nothing to be ashamed about, no matter how many mistakes you make. The second thing I would say is, if you watch any movies on Netflix, I urge you to try to count how many people you find in movies with accents. There's a lot, many, you know, so it adds color. It's part of our culture anywhere. You know, we're always going to have people, immigrants, and that's nothing to be ashamed about either. So if you want to improve your pronunciation, it takes not just language practice, but phonetic muscle memory practice. You know, you have to be able to learn to position your face a bit differently. So there's coaches that are able to help you do that. And they help you put your tongue in a position or make sounds that sound like something else that you don't really realize sounds like something else. For example, I heard somebody say that if you want to sound like you're saying bacon and you're from Jamaica, you should say beer can as if you were from the United Kingdom, and you would say beer can. And so now you sound like you're Jamaican. I mean, this is just an example of like, oh, I would never have been able to do a good Jamaican accent using that if somebody hadn't told me what the approximation was. I mean, that's not something we teach in class, but there are examples of words, there are examples of mouth positions that you can give a student that are going to help them make those connections that they wouldn't normally be able to do on their own.
You just mentioned some people they cannot hear, but still can learn how to talk, how to speak.
Yeah, you can definitely retrain the muscles without even hearing yourself. So the ability for people to pronounce words correctly is going to depend on a lot of training that doesn't include the ear, because you can have perfect pitch as a musician, but those people are rare. You're not going to find those people very often, but everybody's going to be able to feel their mouth. So I think you should rely on your sense of touch and proprioception, you know, where your mouth is more than you're listening.
Okay.
I can give you an example.
Okay.
There's vowels in Romance languages that are hard for people to hear the difference, because in English we use diphthongs, which are two vowels together. Like we don't say ah, we say a. As in a lot of words, one letter can sound like two vowel sounds. We don't say oh, we don't say oh, we say oh. We have those two sounds. So if people have a hard time hearing what that should sound like, I give them the example of using a very tiny straw to try to drink a milkshake. And so when you want to say the letter oo and you can't hear it, you could just put your mouth in the shape of sucking through a tiny straw and say the letter ah. So you can say ah. And then you could put your mouth in the shape of sucking through a tiny straw and say ah again with that mouth shape. Ooh. Even though you're still saying the same sound. It's not the sound that matters, it's the mouth shape. Ow. Ooh. And so we can take that position and develop another sound, which is aw in Italian. So we take the same pursed lips, tight mouth, and just drop the jaw as if your tiny straw is very big, and say from ooh to aw. So you still have you're still activating the muscles around the lips and the throat, and you're still saying ah, but the shape of the mouth makes it sound like aw.
Oh, I see. I still want to try to say ah, but the shape of my mouth make the sound different.
Right, and so you're not trying to make a different sound. You're trying to shape your face differently. And that is more effective than trying to make a sound, because sounds are very subjective. If I say ah and you try to repeat it, it's going to sound a little different than what I just did. But if I try to show you a position of your face and we keep the sound the same, we're always going to say ah. In fact, you can say ah because that's the default completely open. But if you always say ah and you just change the shape of your mouth and face, you can make all the vowel sounds in Romance languages.
Oh, wow.
So
So
from
that's
a,
the beauty of the
e,
phonics.
yeah, you just change the shape.
The shape of the mouth make a big difference.
Yeah, it is all the difference.
There is a reason for why phonics class is so popular, because it's really how you to make the right pronunciation.
Right. Your vocal cords are only, your vocal cords and your diaphragm are controlling volume and pitch. Your timbre is kind of determined, by your biology, by the shape of your vocal cords, your trachea. Everything else, the sounds that you're making, the vowel sounds, is all determined by your mouth and teeth and lips and tongue.
A lot of parents, they really try to build up the language sense of their children. So they will play songs at home all day. What do you think about this background music approach in learning a new language?
Yeah, in Italian we have a saying, tutto fa brodo, which means everything makes the broth. You can throw any little thing that you can throw into the pot is going to help. Every little bit. Playing music is nice because you have a recognition of sounds, so there's a familiarity, but it's not going to help you actually produce the sounds unless you're singing along. So you can play background, that's okay. I would say that some of the best people, some of the best speakers of any language I've heard are professional singers, because that's all they think about is their mouth shapes and their breathing and the rhythm. These are some artistic parts. There's some kind of, the fine arts part of the language learning process that they really specialize in. And so they may not understand the grammar, they may not even understand the vocabulary, but they have beautiful pronunciation. And so it sounds like they speak very well. So I would say music is great. Listening to music is okay. You're not going to be gaining the muscle memory you need to produce the language. Or practice, I should say. Producing is really just a word for expressing yourself using your own words.
Okay, so the background music is still good to build up the language sense of the children, but you still need to practice. You need to really say it.
Yeah.
Spit it out.
I would say it would improve language recognition. It may even help you get, maybe some vocab, because if it's repeating and you have some images along with it, I guess. You could also have an emotional connection, which we talked about is important. If you have an emotional connection to a song, then indirectly it's going to help you remember some of the words, but not because they mean anything, but just because you feel something about it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if you're reproducing it and you hear yourself, then that obviously is much better.
Okay.